The following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers. This is the TFangy coming to you with what will hopefully be a successful review. And today we're going to be taking a look at two Transformers action figures that I've spent the last 5 years sitting on unreviewed and unboxed, but I'm finally going to release them from their cardboard prison cells because they are the two Decepticon Battlechargers Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Earthrise Runabout and Runamuck. So yeah, these guys were released in the Earthrise line back in 2020. Recently, Runamuck, who won the fan, Runamuck, who was given a deluxe class figure in the Earthrise line because he won a fan vote where Transformers fans and collectors got to pick one of, I believe it was 4, or it might have been only 3, and I think it was 4 Transformers characters to be given a new deluxe class Transformers action figure. The other characters have, since Runamuck's release in the Earthrise line, have gotten new deluxe figures as well. The Insecticon Shrapnel, Needlenose, and I can't remember who the 4th character in the fan vote was, but yeah, everyone wanted to have a new action figure of the Battlechargers because after the Generation 1 Battlecharger action figures, which had a spring-activated transformation where they would pop up into robot mode out of their alt modes when you would pull back and release them on a spring-loaded mechanism. The only action figures of Runabout and Runamuck we got were third-party action figures, which were Legends class size, and then the only deluxe figures we got, modern deluxe figures we got before the Earthrise versions of the Battlechargers were released exclusively through the Transformers Collectors Club, which made them very hard to find and made them go for a hefty price on the aftermarket. And then we were supposed to get Legends class sized figures of Runabout and Runamuck in the Combiner Wars line, but the figure that was supposed to be Runabout out was ultimately became the brand new character of I forgot his name, but it'll come to me in just a moment. Okay, I had to pause for a moment to remember that Blackjack was the Combiner Wars figure that was going to be Runabout. It was turned into Runabout by Takar. Anyways, it was Takar Tomy who eventually turned Combiner Wars Blackjack into both Runabout and Runamuck. Okay, and so the point I'm trying to get at is that these guys are the first and only deluxe class chug figures that the Battlechargers have been given. And I apologize if I said it a moment ago, but recently Runamuck was given a re-release by Hasbro for people who missed out on him the first time. When the Battlechargers were released in the Earthrise line, Runamuck was released at mass retail, but his partner in crime and grime, Runabout, he was released exclusively at Target stores here in the United States, and after the initial stock of Runabout was released through Target stores, that was the only stock of him that came about, and so because of that, Runabout has become a very rare and hard to find Transformers action figure, but hopefully with the re-release of Runamuck, Runabout will soon follow. Although the other Earthrise Target store exclusive figure that Runabout came out with at the same time back in 2020, which was the Voyager class Conehead of Thrust, it's been rumored that Thrust might be getting a re-release, so hopefully a re-release of Runabout will follow Runamuck. So because Runamuck was the first use of the mold, he's in original mold, while Runabout is the repaint. As far as sculpting wise goes, they have different head sculpts, but unlike their Generation 1 action figures, which were different sports cars, but they were just almost the same size and shape. Here for the Earthrise Deluxe class figures, they are the same sports car. The only sculpting difference between the two of them is their robot mode head sculpt. So when you transform them into their alternate modes, Runabout and Runamuck now transform into the exact same sports car, just with different color schemes. Another difference is that unlike Runamuck, who comes with one laser gun, Runabout comes with 2 laser guns, which can attach to each other to make a long rifle. And for my copy of Runamuck, as you can see right there, and you probably heard it rattling around in the box, for some reason on my copy of Runamuck, which I got from Amazon back in 2020, my copy of Runamuck, his laser gun and popped out of the spot in the box where it was supposed to be held, so he's been rattling around for the last 5 years. But after 5 years, I'm tired of waiting. And I'm hoping that with the re-release of Runamuck, Runabout will follow. But yeah, I'm just tired of seeing these guys sitting in their boxes, and so it's time to unbox them and open them up. So here for Runamuck, here he is inside the box, the Earthrise logo. This is what the Earthrise boxes looked like back in 2020. Got some artwork of his robot mode here on the side. Word Transformers Generations. You got half the poster image for the Transformers Earthrise line, and Runabout has the same half. It would have been nice if they'd each come with a separate half just to have them display made with each other, but regardless, here is Runabout inside of his box. It's kind of hard to see him because he's mostly black, and the insert for the Earthrise line is outer space, so Runabout almost blends into the background of the inside of the box. Exact same artwork used for Runabout uses the exact same artwork as Runamuck, but they did change the head sculpt to match the action figure, so at least Runabout's artwork doesn't have him in with Runamuck's head sculpt. And coming here to the back of the box, since they're the same mold, they each transform back and forth between robot mode and alternate mode in 16 steps. And they are each Decepticons. Runamuck was the 37th action figure to be released in the Earthrise line, and Runabout was the 41st, and they did have to put the word Decepticon in front of Runabout's name to get a registered trademark for it. But yeah, the Battlechargers, when they were first introduced to the Transformers franchise back in 1986, Hasbro managed to successfully market Runabout and Runamuck as being two of the main Decepticon cast members for the 1986 lineup. But in the Generation 1 cartoon, they only appeared in a few episodes. Runamuck appeared in 2 episodes. He appeared in 1 episode riding on top of Blastoff while fighting the Autobots, and then in the episode Ghost in the Machine, I believe is what it was called, Starscream came back as a ghost, and he possessed Runamuck, who blasted Runabout, and then he went on to possess Trypticon, and the Battlechargers worked along with 2 of the Coneheads, Thrust and Dirge, which I personally always believe is one reason why Runabout and Thrust were both released as Target exclusives, since they both helped Dirge and Runamuck stop the ghost of Starscream possessed Trypticon from rampaging across Cybertron. But after that episode, Runabout and Runamuck, that was it. That was the only screen time they got, and I honestly experienced my own personal Mandela effect, where I thought Runabout and Runamuck appeared in more than Runabout appeared in more than 1 episode and Runamuck in more than just 2 episodes. I thought they appeared more often during the 3rd season of the Generation 1 cartoon, but despite their brief cartoon appearance, Runabout and Runamuck have become fan-favorite characters, especially amongst Generation 1 Transformers fans. And their Generation 1 action figures weren't that great because of the automatic transformation gimmick, with them being battle starters. And on their Generation 1 action figures, when they transformed into robot mode, their robot mode arms were just little plastic triangles that hung off the sides of the torsos, and because of that, the only way they could actually hold their laser guns was by plugging them up on top of their shoulders, and you can kind of still see it here with Runamuck. Look, as you can see right there while he's still inside the box, they have 5mm ports on the tops of their shoulders, so if you want to have them hold their laser guns like the Generation 1 action figures did, you can plug them on top of the shoulders and mimic that there. But thanks to new modern engineering when designing Transformers action figures, and the gimmick of automatic transformations being reserved for the smaller, 2 to 3 inch size Transformers action figures, for the older adult age Transformers collectors, Hasbro and Takara have abandoned gimmicks in favor of having more articulated joints and action poses for action figures for the Transformers when they're in their robot modes. So similar to the Transformers Titans Return versions of Topspin and Twin Twist, whose Generation 1 action figures had automatic transformations. I personally I personally favor Runabout and Runamuck no longer having the automatic transformation, in favor of them having fully articulated robot modes where you can get them into action poses. And yeah, that's pretty much it. At least in one reference to them be transforming into separate sports cars in the Generation 1 line. Runabout and Runamuck do have different stripe patterns. Runamuck has a gold stripe across the hood, while he's got gold stripes along the base of him, and Runabout has the elevated red racing stripes along the top sides of his alt mode. So there are enough subtle differences to distinguish the two of them from each other, because that's been the main gimmick with Runabout and Runamuck, is that just like for lack of better analogy, just like pieces on a chess set, Runamuck is white and Runabout is black, and so together they're the black and white Decepticons. It came to my attention quite recently. I didn't realize this until this year, just a few weeks ago, that in one of their last comic appearances in the late 80s / mid 90s, Runamuck let out a laughter, and along with the somewhat, for lack of better vocabulary, comical fights that Runabout and Runamuck got into in the comic books. Starting in the 90s, Transformers fans and collectors have compared Runabout and Runamuck to the equivalent of the cartoon characters from the adult MTV cartoon series Beavis and Butthead. So yeah, Runabout and Runamuck by many fans are considered the Beavis and Butthead of the Transformers. No matter how serious they are, they end up getting into more comedic situations when they're fighting Autobots, and even when they're trying to get a word in edgewise with their fellow Decepticons. So yeah, Runabout and Runamuck are one of the more comical duos of the Transformers franchise. So without further delay, and after 5 years, the time has finally come. Let's get Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy, Earthrise, Runabout and Runamuck out of their boxes, and we'll start off by taking a close look at them both in their robot modes. Alright, and it feels so fantastic to finally have these guys out of their boxes. So here are Earthrise, Runabout, and Runamuck out of the box and in their robot modes. And yeah, they are a pretty fantastic duo. I've always enjoyed the idea of them having being opposite color schemes, where Runamuck is almost entirely white, while Runabout is almost entirely black. One thing that some Transformers fans and collectors had a little complaint about is that on Runamuck's original Generation 1 toy, he had orange parts on his torso, and instead on the new Earthrise figure they're now black, such as the inside of his abdomen and then the new joints on the back of his knees. If those had been done in orange, that would have made him slightly more accurate to his original Generation 1 action figure, but that's just a minor nitpick on my part. Alright, so yeah, they have different head sculpts. They do have different head sculpts, different mouth plates. It's kind of hard to see Runabout due to my camera blurring things up if I get them too close, but yeah, there's the different head sculpts to them. As far as looking similar to other Transformers characters, it's kind of hard for me to think of any right off the back whose head sculpts are similar to that of Runabout and Runamuck. I'd say Runamuck's head sculpt, it's kind of sort of similar to Transformers animated Bulkhead, and for Runabout, I'd say his head sculpt, I can't really think of any characters off the bat, but yeah, there are subtle differences in the head sculpts between the two of them. As far as accessory pieces go, Runamuck came with this laser gun, which is somewhat reminiscent of his original Generation 1 laser gun. Runabout comes with the exact same laser gun that Runamuck does. I put it in his left hand because in addition to the same laser gun as his partner Runamuck, Runabout also comes with this other laser gun weapon. I don't know if it was used on a previous Transformers action figure or not, but yeah, Runabout comes with 2 laser guns instead of just one. And as I said, if you want to, because they're original Generation 1 action figures, turning Runabuck's arm like that. Because of the gimmick with the Battlechargers having a spring-loaded transformation when they transformed from robot mode to alternate mode, the only way to store the weapons on Runabout and Runamuck's Generation 1 Battlecharger action figures was plugging them on the tops of their arms as shoulder cannons. So the designers at Hasbro and Tomy put 5mm ports on the Earthrise Battlecharger's shoulders so you can mimic the weapon attachment on their Generation 1 action figures. But as I said, in more recent years, Hasbro and Tomy have dropped gimmicks in favor of having automatic transformations. I mean, they've dropped the gimmick of automatic transformations is what I was trying to say, in favor of having articulated joints. So speaking of articulation, I'll use Runamuck for the example. Both their heads are on ball joints, so fresh out of the box they're a little stiff, but they have the potential to spin 360 degrees left and right. Arms can rotate at the shoulder 360 degrees forwards and backwards, but again, these joints are stiff out of the box. Bicep swivel, hinged elbow. Runabout and Runamuck do not have wrist articulation due to how the hands fold into the forearms during transformation, so the forearms are hollow. Waist joint. Legs can go out this far, so they can almost do a full split. Legs can go forward this far. So a lot of kicking action with Runabout and Runamuck. They can only go back this far due to the waist joint hitting the windshield of the vehicle mode. So they got universal jointed hips, swivel joints in the thigh, double hinged knee joints, which is kind of a pain due to the transformation. They do unclip very easily. The clip on the top of the knee joint is supposed to go into that rectangular shaped port right there in the leg. So the knee joint is actually supposed to work bending like this. So almost 90 degrees of bending at the knees. Ankle pivots, which is always a nice welcome. And as a nod to their Generation 1 Battlecharger action figures with the automatic transformation, when it would transform, when the Battlechargers would transform, they would the front and back halves of their vehicle modes would sandwich together and shoot upward, which would allow the robot mode to pop up. And because of that, on the Generation 1 action figures for Runabout and Runamuck, all four of the wheels ended up on the bottom of their feet. In the Generation 1 cartoon, Sunbow Productions animated them having all four wheels from their alternate mode on the underside of their feet. So for the Earthrise action figures, there's fake double wheels on their heel spurs, to mimic the appearance of the Generation 1 Battlechargers. The actual front wheels for the back wheels for the alternate mode end up storing inside the backpack now. On the Generation 1 Battlechargers action figures, the backpack housed the spring mechanism for the automatic transformation. That's why the Earthrise versions of Runabout and Runamuck have these huge backpacks behind their heads, because that's how the Generation 1 action figures would automatically transform. But yeah, pretty impressive looking duo. For some size comparisons, as I said, most action figures of Runabout and Runamuck have been released as exclusives. The only ones of the Battlechargers that have been released at mass retail by Hasbro were, of course, the Generation 1 Battlechargers in 1986, and then Earthrise Runamuck. I'm sorry, I get their names mixed up sometimes. Runamuck, he was released at mass retail in the Earthrise line back in 2020, but he was still pretty hard to find since a lot of fans and collectors wanted to get the action figure that won the fan vote for getting an action figure in the Earthrise line. Because Runabout was released at Target, he is an exclusive figure as well. But regardless, most action figures of the Battlechargers have been exclusives, or some third-party releases of them have existed as well. So for some size comparisons with the only other action figures of Runabout and Runamuck that I have in my Transformers collection, before the Earthrise figures were released in 2020, the previous year in 2019, when I didn't think that we were going to get any modern figures of Runabout and Runamuck anytime soon, I got the third-party Legends class-sized versions of the Battlechargers. These were released by Iron Factory and they're still pretty solid Legends class-sized or Core class-sized action figures of the Battlechargers. And as you can see right here, on the Generation 1 action figure of Runamuck, the inside of his torso was orange, so Iron Factory managed to mimic that as well. So it kind of would have been nice if some of the interior, if some of Runamuck's interior had been done in orange. I can kind of see why it is the way it is. The Battlechargers have these two almost like intake vents here on either side of their head, and on Runamuck it's unpainted smoky gray plastic because it's the same plastic pieces used for the windows of his vehicle mode. But it still would have been nice if they had mimicked that. If they had painted it orange just to mimic his Generation 1 action figure. And for one last special size comparison, and when I found out that Combiner Wars Blackjack was originally going to be Runabout, and then Takara Tomy officially painted Combiner Wars Blackjack into the Battlechargers, I decided to make my own custom painted versions of Runabout and Runamuck. So here are my custom painted Combiner Wars versions of Runabout and Runamuck. Runabout is a straight up repaint of Blackjack. I just redid him in the black plastic with a layer of black paint just to make him completely black, and then I painted the hubcap silver over, and so I didn't go the extra mile by painting the torso black also. So unfortunately, Runabout, he looks like a slightly darker version of Blackjack. But considering how he turned out, I'm really glad at how he appears. And for my custom Runabout figure, I did go the extra mile, and I bought a duplicate copy of Combiner Wars Hot Rod, and I swapped the interior torsos of them. So I do have a red and purple Combiner Wars Hot Rod in my collection now, just to give Runabout an orange torso, just to make him look like his Generation 1 Battlecharger as well. So here is my collection of Runabout and Runamuck action figures, custom Combiner Wars, third-party Legends class, and now official Generations Deluxe class figures. So in terms of the largest action figures of Runabout and Runamuck that have ever been released, I believe the Collector's Club Deluxe class versions of them are still the physically largest action figures of Runabout and Runamuck that exist. That's because they're mold mates with mold that was originally used on Transformers Reveal the Shield Trax X, and then the mold was retooled into the Generations Deluxe Class Wheeljack action figure. Both Trax and Wheeljack were released in 2011, and the Transformers Collectors Club repainted them into Runabout and Runamuck, I believe, the following year in 2012. Alvin, that Deluxe Class action figure is slightly larger than the Earthrise Deluxe figures. But yeah, overall, I really enjoy having all these versions of Runabout and Runamuck in my Transformers collection. So without further delay, hey, let's get these guys transformed into their alt modes, and we will wrap up the review. Hi, one last thing I just wanted to point out before I actually show off the alt modes. The way the Elvises for Runamuck and Runabout have been sculpted, they look like evil smiling faces, and once you see that, you can never unsee it. So it's pretty amusing that Hasbro and Takara Tomy, the designers, made their pelvises look like they have faces on them. Alright, and so here are Runabout and Runamuck transformed into their alt modes, and for what they are, Runabout being a repaint of Runamuck with the only sculpted difference between them being the robot mode heads, they are pretty fantastic looking vehicles. Runabout, for some problem, I had a hard time straightening out the windshield and plugging it into place, and I think it's because one of the transformation joints in his legs didn't want to stay popped in properly, so that's a little disconcerting to know that the rare and harder to find of these two figures is the one that refuses to transform properly. As you can see right there, I just popped the windshield back up again. And so, yeah, it is a little disconcerting to know that Runabout doesn't want to stay transformed as neatly as Runamuck does. But apart from that, and I don't know which one of the joints in Runabout is causing him to not want to transform properly. So I may transform him back into his robot mode and then transform into alt mode again to see if that straightens things out. But yeah, they do roll fairly well. The hubcaps are, I believe they're the same shade of white paint used on both of them just to match up their Generation 1 Battlecharger action figures. But yeah, they are pretty neat looking sports cars. As I said when they were still inside the box, they do have different racing stripes. Runamuck's got a gold stripe across the hood of his vehicle mode, while he's got 2 gold stripes along the bottoms of the base of his side panels. Runabout, meanwhile, he's got these red racing stripes here along the top sides of his alt mode, and then he's got another racing stripe up here on the top wrapping around on the back section. Both of them, the headlights are unpainted. It kind of sort of looks like Runamuck's headlights are painted just because of the gold stripe wrapping around the base of the spot where the headlights sit. They both at least have their taillights painted red, which is pretty nice looking. And then of course they got the Decepticon logos on their hoods, the same ones that were on their robot mode chests. Runamuck's Decepticon logo does not have an outline frame. Runabout's does. It's got a silver outline frame just to make sure it pops out more against the black paint used on his roof. And as I said, they both roll fairly well. In terms of weapon storage for their laser guns, as far as weapon storage is concerned, unfortunately the only place to store the weapons is on the 5mm port on the roofs of their alt modes. So there's what they look like with their laser guns attached to them. It takes away the aesthetic of them being robots in disguise, because that's one thing that even their Generation 1 Battlecharger action figures had going for them, is that Runabout and Runamuck transformed into pretty realistic looking sports cars, so they're among the Transformers characters who are able to be robots in disguise. Looking at them at first glance, looking at Runabout and Runamuck at first glance, if you were to look at them from a distance and not be a Transformers fan and collector, you would say those are pretty neat looking toy cars. But if you weren't aware that they were Transformers, you probably wouldn't be able to tell that they are able to turn into robots, so that's one thing I like about them. And of course, for a size comparison, here they are next to the other versions of Runabout and Runamuck that I own. So here are the third-party Iron Factory versions of them, and unfortunately there is no weapon storage for the laser guns that come with Iron Factory's versions of Runabout and Runamuck. And then of course, my last but by no means least, my custom Combiner Wars versions of the two of them and the shield weapons that they came with double as the racing spoilers for their alt modes. So yeah, pretty impressive looking versions of Runabout and Runamuck. So for the final proverbial question, do I recommend getting the Earthrise versions of Runabout and Runamuck and adding them to your Transformers collection? I absolutely do. You cannot go wrong having these modern deluxe class versions of the Battlechargers in your Transformers collection. As I said, they came out in the Earthrise line back in 2020, so since they were released 5 years ago, they fetch for a pretty hefty aftermarket price, especially Runabout. I think brand new in an unopened box, I've seen Runabout selling for as much as $200 to $300 due to how rare of a figure he is. But as I said, Runamuck recently got a re-release, and so he's retailing for, he's not going for as much an aftermarket price as Runabout is, but I'm really hoping, a lot of Transformers fans and collectors are hoping that Runabout gets a re-release, because a lot of fans and collectors missed out on him when he was released the first time around due to being a Target store exclusive instead of being released at mass retail like his Battlecharger partner Runamuck. So yeah, fingers crossed all around that that Runabout gets a second release just like Runamuck did. So this has been my review of the Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Earthrise 2020 Deluxe Class Battlechargers of Runabout and Runamuck. If you can find these figures, get them, because you cannot go wrong having these modern versions of the Battlechargers in your Transformers collection. And compared to the third-party and custom figures I have of them, these are the only deluxes I have in my collection personally, and so I know there are more Transformers fans and collectors out there that do not have the Transformers Collectors Club versions of Runabout and Runamuck. So these are, I believe these are the physically largest versions of the Battlechargers that have been released by Hasbro. directly by Hasbro and not through the Transformers Collectors Club. So I highly recommend getting these figures if you can. As far as which of them is my personal favorite, black has always been my favorite color, so Runabout is my personal favorite of the two Battlechargers. But that said, I enjoy having Runamuck as much as I do Runabout in my collections. Thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TFangeek, and until next time, you guys, please remember to stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.